Welcome to The Author Show, where we feature new authors and books, from fiction to self-help and everything in between. You'll find it all at theauthorshow.com. That's theauthorshow.com. And now let the show begin.
Hello and welcome back to the show. This is your host, Don McCaulley. Today we're welcoming program author Jim Gleeson, and he is the author of Science, God, and You, The Ancient Theory of Everything. Before I bring in today's guest, a quick reminder that selected interviews are available in our iPhone app, which can be downloaded in the App Store, as well as on TV on the Roku channel and Amazon Fire TV. Our app name on all platforms is simply The Author Show. Jim, how are you?
Hey, I'm great, Don. Thank you.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Well, Don, I wonder myself how I came to write a book called The Ancient Theory of Everything. I was an architect. I started doing a lot of research on the environment, started becoming aware of politics, did research on various issues. It became something I really wanted to do to find out. And what I found out was there's no value in consensus. Everybody in the world could believe something that's not true, and it happens a lot. So that led me to get into writing, to try to do enough research that I could convey to people what I was going through, that a reader could benefit from the research that I was doing.
So tell us about your book.
I wrote a book a while back, an ebook called The 5 Biggest Myths You Thought Were True. And that's what led me to write this book, because I came to the conclusion that there isn't any truth in the world. That just like ancient wisdom tells us, the material world that we think is real and seems real is illusion. It's based on time and space. And as the quantum physicists tell us now, that's all relative. So what's absolute? And the only thing that's absolute, and that's what all the ancient wisdoms, including Christianity, really tell us, is absolute is the spirit, something that we call spirit, is the actual substance, because it's what's eternal. So I wrote the book, and I wrote the book for myself to help figure out, well, how do I benefit from that? How do I access this, whatever's beyond the material, and help myself and help readers to get past the anxiety of the world. We all live in this anxious state because we don't know what's going to happen. And we think the world, that we exist in this world outside that's fixed. And what science is beginning to tell us is that the world comes from thought, that matter is secondary to consciousness. And this is huge. This gives us the freedom to choose what kind of life we have. So it's exciting. That's why I wrote the book.
So who did you write your book for specifically? Who's your target audience? Well,
obviously, everybody needs to know who they are. Not everybody's looking. Not everybody's old enough or mature enough to look. So, it's probably, as there's a book called Falling Upward by Richard Rohr that talks about the two halves of life. And he says, well, you can be in the second half of life and be 10 years old, or you can be in the first half of life and be 85. Because the halves are based on, the first half is learning to believe you're who is the person in the mirror. And the second half is beginning to learn to go beyond that, and that's not really all you are. Learning to understand that your thoughts are not who you are. So anybody that's open-minded and wants to know more and have more peace and have more freedom from the tribulations of what seems so real in the world, it could be a man, it could be a woman, it could be a student. It could be anybody with an open mind that's searching and is willing to actually look. And that's who I wrote the book for.
Now, could you say there's any type of central message or perhaps underlying theme that you would say runs throughout your book?
I think the central theme is the good news that there is but one problem and one solution, and that understanding this changes everything. Because we grow up believing that the world is just massive amount of problems and situations that arise, relationship problems, health problems, all kinds of problems that we continually have to deal with on a daily basis. And they all seem unrelated. But there's really only one problem. And the one problem is that we don't recognize the truth that is beyond that we can connect to. The spiritual truth. You could call it the universal mind. Some people call it God. Some people call it consciousness. But we can free ourselves from the attachment to all these thoughts that make us think that's who we are. We can realize that we're thinking those thoughts, and the awareness that we're thinking is who we really are. And we can strengthen that reality and free ourselves from all those problems through that one solution.
So if you could compare your book with any book out there we might already be familiar with, which book would it be and why?
I think there's a writer named Eckhart Tolle that's become extremely popular in the last few years. His latest book is called A New Earth. Now, he is a career psychologist and psychiatrist, and he comes at it from that point of view, but he's become sort of a guru that people come from all over the world to hear him talk. And he's wonderful. My book is more like, I'm not a guru, I'm just a regular person, like all my readers. So I figure, well, if I can do a little bit of research and I can aggressively look for the truth, anybody can do it. And that's where my book is a little different, because it's written by not a career scientist or theologian. I'm just a person who's a generalist who wanted to know more about who I was and how I fit into the universe. And it's findable. I mean, there's a lot of people writing a lot of good things, and this book sort of summarizes a lot of that and makes it more accessible to my readers.
So was there some aha moment in your early research and study to let you know you were onto something?
There's been several. I think the first one was when I was looking at some of the mythology of our culture and the politics and finding out that consensus really was meaningless. If 10 million or a billion Christians believe that we are matter and that God is some distant personage, some distance away, that doesn't make that true. And I found out even that you can't actually prove whether the earth revolves around the sun or the sun revolves around the earth. Now, we all believe that the earth revolves around the sun, but even scientists like Hoyle and Stephen Hawking, you can look up and find quotes where they say, no, it's all relative. You can't really prove it either way. It's a philosophical decision. And that changes everything about what we believe in the world.
So what do you mean when you conclude that there is no truth in the world at all?
Well, I mean that we know from science that time and space only relate to each other, and without one, the other doesn't exist. And so they're both relative and they're both not absolute. There's a book that was written in 1875 called Science and Health by Mary Baker Eddy. And she said in 1875, there is no life, truth, intelligence, nor substance in matter. All is infinite mind in its infinite manifestation, or God is all in all. And that was before quantum physics was even thought about. But it's consistent with what even the Bible says in Hebrews. It says, the world was not made of things that are visible. So there is absolute truth outside of what science calls matter. And science has even, in the last 20 years, realized that there is no matter, it's all energy.
So what's the meaning of the subtitle of your book?
Well, yeah, the ancient theory of everything. That science is looking and has been looking for many years for the theory of everything. A theory that would combine the macro of material physics with the elusive idea of quantum physics, which says that there is no matter. And they can't find a theory that covers both of those. They still haven't. But what I'm saying is that ancient wisdom has that theory. It says that it's matter that's the illusion, and the eternal substance of consciousness is what's real. And so learning to make that more real in your life proves personally to each individual who does it that it's true. So the only thing you can really prove is the ancient theory of everything. I can't prove it to you, and you can't prove it to me, but I can prove it to myself through research and through actively encouraging my abstract thought and leaving behind attachments to things in the world, and you could do the same thing.
What's been your most rewarding experience since publishing your book?
Well, I think probably all authors will say that they learned more from writing the book than they ever thought possible. And that's true. Deciding to write a book is a big deal, but actually putting forth the effort to do it and to carry through with it forces you to think about things and forces you to think about your readers. How can I explain this in a way that people will understand? How can I help people to grasp what it is I've learned from doing all this? And so getting it written, getting response that people could understand things that I was trying to explain is very rewarding, and it's really worth the effort.
So how would you describe the writing style you're using?
Well, my writing style is, as I say right off of the bat in the book, is very personable. I'm not trying to write a treatise on science or theology. I'm just explaining what happened to me in easy to understand terms, because that's what I know, and that's the way I write. When you're conscious that people are going to be trying to understand your ideas, it makes a difference. So you learn to write in a more conversational way.
So other than selling your book, of course, what else do you hope to accomplish with it?
I started a blog and a website called Science, God, and You several years ago as a sort of a clearinghouse for these ideas to get conversations going. And it's been amazing to talk to all kinds of people, from atheists to really serious Christians, Eastern people, and be able to find a common denominator. And that's been a real further education to me after I wrote the book. It carries on, and it's going to produce another book, I'm pretty sure.
So in your opinion, who should buy your book?
Well, I think there's a lot of people out there of all ages, like I said, who are looking for some answers that they can really apply. There's a lot of books out there that explain all kinds of things in this area that are technical to some degree or another, that don't necessarily get into what do I do? What do I do with this information? How can I get from just understanding these concepts and believing them to applying them and making them real in my life and having it actually change my life, making it more peaceful? Taking away the anxiety, understanding what's really going on. And so I think there are a lot of people that are looking for that. They go to seminars and things all over the place, but I tried to write a book that people get to the end of it, they understand something that they didn't at the beginning, and they know what to do next.
What's your website address?
And my website is sciencegodandyou.com.
Well, this has been just great. Our guest today has been Jim Gleeson, and he is the author of Science, God, and You, the Ancient Theory of Everything. Jim, thanks very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate the opportunity.
This is Don McCaulley wrapping up another edition of the Author Show. Go out there, buy the book today, and please share this interview with your friends so that they too have the opportunity to discover our guests and their work. The Author Show can be accessed at any time at theauthorshow.com. Selected interviews can also be found on major platforms like Amazon Fire TV, the Roku channel, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, and many more. And whether you're an author who would like to be featured or a reader in search of new books to read, The Author Show is a great place to start. Check us daily as we continue to introduce wonderful authors of very interesting books on The Author Show.
Thanks for listening to The Author Show. Find out more about authors and their work at theauthorshow.com. Theauthorshow.com. Tune in next time to another great author on The Author Show.